Welcome to Chronic Combat Conversations, a look at our best bets, picks, and predictions for the upcoming UFC Fight Night Overeem vs. Volkov, with your hosts, TB Scouting MMA and
the MMA Guru, here to bring you our picks for UFC Vegas 18, the UFC's triumphant return to Vegas after a long stint on Fight Island and a week off. We could also call this card UFC Fight Night 184 and UFC by Alistair Overeem and Alexander Volkov. And I am really excited for this one. It's kind of made me sweat a little bit all week. I've gone a little bit back and forth. I feel very confident in where I'm at now, but there were certain times this week where I was like, oh, I don't know. So I'm
a great main event. We have one of the biggest legends of the sport in Alistair Overeem, and someone who's no stranger to the octagon or Bellator, and plenty of other paths to the MMA victories for Alexander Volkov. I'm very excited to see how this one plays out. And, let's not forget about our co-main event, Corey Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar. That should be a hell of a fight as well.
Listen, I'll be honest. If hindsight was 2020 and
Frankie Edgar, that should be a hell of a fight as well.
Listen, I'll be honest. If hindsight was 2020 and we could see into the future and the main event goes short, and I mean, the odds not to tell you that that co-main is going to go the distance. I mean, they might have that wrong. The co-main might have that wrong. The co-main might maybe should have been Overeem and Volkov. I don't know. Those bantamweights really smack. That those fights are always so exciting.
Yeah, and maybe they would do more with the 5 rounds. So
yeah,
let's jump right in. We like to start at the bottom of the card here, and we earn our way to the main event. That's how we do it here on Chronic Combat Conversations.
There's no free rides. We earn every step.
That's right. Ode Osborne versus Jerome Rivera. So first things that stand out to me looking at this matchup, Osborne still has a reach advantage in this fight, but he's used to having a much bigger one, only 1 inch here, and he will be giving up 2 inches of leg reach to Jerome Rivera. Both guys winless in their UFC careers, and both guys also coming off of some pretty disappointing appearances in the octagon. To me, you see Ode Osborne 29, Rivera 25, so both still relatively young, but Jerome Rivera 10-4, Osborne 8-3. Did you see anything on tape here specifically?
No, nothing that really jumped out at me, especially in terms
specifically.
No, nothing that really jumped out at me, especially in terms of what we can get in terms of value on the betting market. I do like Ode Osborne a little bit more than Jerome Rivera. I don't really favor Jerome Rivera. I don't really favor anybody taking a fight after they just fought 3 weeks ago, especially when you lost a fight 3 weeks ago and now you're taking another fight. Ode Osborne in his last fight, which was a disappointing loss. I mean, he got caught in Brian. He put himself in Brian's best, in his wheelhouse, and that's not what you want to do. And as a young maturing fighter, you're going to make those mistakes and learn from them. That being said, I think you should pass this one. And if I'm making a degenerate bet, I do like Osborne by finish. I have no idea how Rivera is going to look after another weight cut. That's it.
Sure. So to me, Osborne what he showed against Kelleher, he has some explosive. I wouldn't rule out a knockout by any stretch. Also, Jerome Rivera not really keen to use his hands in the stand up. He's more of a switch stance kick. He does very well with his kicks, but I don't think he offers enough upstairs behind it to really offer enough of a threat. However, is Osborne, the guy to take advantage of it? I think athletically he should have the advantage, and we talked about that weight cut, you know, might be too much too soon, and this could be the UFC's way of getting Rivera another fight to getting him closer to the end of his UFC contract. Osborne
Yeah,
UFC's way of getting Rivera another fight to getting him closer to the end of his UFC contract. Osborne
yeah,
definitely used a turnaround after that loss.
yeah, total agreement. Yeah, listen, Ode Osborne has 2 career KOs and 5 by submission. So yeah,
Yeah,
and listen, Ode Osborne has 2 career KOs and 5 by submission. So yeah,
yeah,
anything is possible.
right,
I do. Again, I think is the degenerate play. I think if you want to be a little crazy with it, I do like the submission, but especially as a card kicker offer, I feel like a lot of times they get the card jumping in some way, and the guys that or gals that usually serve as that initial card kicker offer kind of know their place on the card in terms of setting the tone. So
right. So if you're looking at the finish, Ode Osborne knockouters would be playing a half a unit on that, but it's not necessarily attractive to look at the money line at minus 196 for Osborne. I'd much rather try to find a prop because I don't think he wins that high a percentage of the time. 60 of the time. 66% essentially. But yeah, I don't like the money line. Moving along, we got our next fight. This one also going to be pretty exciting. We have Timur Valiev versus Martin Day. And if you remember Timur Valiev, you know, his last fight ruled as a no contest, but oh man, that was
or Trevin Jones.
yeah.
If you couldn't like Trevin Jones anymore after literally looking like Derek Brunson's clone in that fight, he unfortunately gets the call, the fight over on short notice. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah, that's rough. And those types of suspensions, I'm glad that they're getting away from. But you know, Chris Tognoni, on the other hand, probably had a good opportunity to stop the fight in round one. So while you could have called it, you know, a knockout for Valiev, it still didn't happen.
I don't like that. I don't think that I thought it was decent refereeing letting the fight continue. Like, would you have been terribly mad at a stoppage? I mean, I guess not, but I don't know. As even as somebody that lost money on that, I I I and rewatched it. I do think that the fight should have continued.
Sure.
That being said, in that fight, Valiev was obviously dominating. He hurt him early. I felt that he kind of gassed a little bit trying to go for that finish. Not that he was completely gassed, but certainly his punches started to become more labored, and I think that led to him kind of throwing that lazy kick, which was eventually beautifully countered with that right hook that absolutely slept him.
Yeah. Well, making his UFC debut in his last fight, and he still has a 0-0 record with one no contest, and we remember him, grappling with the ref after the fight because he didn't know where he was. So
Oh my god. Yeah, I don't care what the record says. A loss is a loss.
sure. Now,
That's a
talking
loss.
about last fights, his opponent Martin Day coming in with a 6.5 inch reach advantage, very
And
significant.
a 3 fight losing streak.
Yes, and talking about last fights, we had someone that lost by round one submission to Anderson Dos Santos, and then before that, by round three, brutal knockout to Davy Grant, and he and he really got put to sleep in that one, and then to get submitted in his next fight, Martin Day 0-3 in the UFC has lost by knockout, submission, decision. Um, This is someone that has the Taekwondo fourth dan black belt, and Timur Valiev, he comes in as a master of sports in combat sambo, international master of sports in pancration. He's also a brown belt, kickboxing and Muay Thai. He trains with Frankie Edgar. The last time he fought was his UFC debut in Edgar versus Munoz card. So it's very interesting to see him ramp up with a fighter that high level quality. And, I think this time Valiev is going to come out, get the win. Martin Day doesn't quite pack the punch that Trevin Jones did. He has the ability to counter. I think Valiev is going to be able to dominate this fight. Both sides, he doubles up, he switches stances on you. His striking's so impressive, and this is a guy that has been proven to get knocked out before. So I see a plus 180 on Valiev for the knockout. I like that a lot. Guru, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I think everything you said is super interesting. Super interesting. There's certainly no value in Valiev money line nearly minus 400 at this point. Um, I really am very interested about this fight situationally and psychologically for these two fighters. Valiev was a heavy favorite and got knocked out and has taken all this time off since, obviously, to recover and then get his training together. And then you look at Martin Day, who again I assume these contracts are generally 4-fight deals. Lost his last three, coming in possibly, for his UFC career here. I mean, for sure, if he loses, we can safely say that he's not going to fight. He's not going to get a fifth fight. Um, I'm really interested to see psychologically where they're at weigh-in day, where they're at walking into the cage even. Um, um, that being said, I think the value at the moment is on Valia by finish plus 100.
Sure, that covers the
Uh,
submission as well. That's not a bad idea. It's still plus money.
yeah. Day is again. Day could be scrappy. Rabid dog. You don't really like to see people like that they're real back up against the wall like that. If he doesn't have what it takes to cut it, then he doesn't have what it takes to cut it. But
Sure.
he really might come out scrappy. I really definitely want to see those weigh-ins and how they look. Short notice call up for Day. You can't imagine that.
Circling Valiev, gonna pick him, gonna play him, and it looks like Guru is as well. So moving to the next fight, we have Yusuf Zalal versus Sungwoo Choi, and we see Zalal actually at a disadvantage in the size in this fight. Choi coming in 2 inches. Choi coming in 2 inches taller, 2.5 inches more in the reach, 4 inches leg reach advantage, and he's 5 years older, and he comes in with very deep Muay Thai experience. In 2010, the Muay Thai World Championship brought home the bronze. He also was with the South Korea Muay Thai national team, but the biggest thing that we see coming in for Zalal is his work that he's been doing at Factory X Muay Thai, and his
Oh yeah.
movement around the cage should present some issues on the feet. But in the smaller octagon, what do you think might happen? Present some issues on the feet, but in the smaller octagon, what do you think might happen?
The smaller octagon certainly makes it interesting, but if someone is used to the smaller octagon, it's going to be Yusuf Salel, who came in guns blazing to the UFC, winning his first three UFC fights in a row, all in the span of 6 months, before it came to a halt against Ilya Topuria in October.
Who's a
Who,
beast?
I mean, is just an absolute beast. Like, oh my god, I'm so excited for whoever he gets to fight next. I think the key to this fight for Zalal will be the takedowns. Can he, use his footwork and eventually get this fight off of the feet? Because Choi is like you had alluded to, a Muay Thai champion. His footwork, his striking is very good, and Zalal has been hit in his fights. I believe he's been finished before in his career, right?
No, Yusuf Zalal actually all three losses by decision.
Oh, all three by decision, yeah. And I was thinking maybe he had gotten finished in that LFA fight, but no, that was a decision loss.
Yeah, he was able to hang on, show some real grittiness.
Yeah. So it would be extremely surprising for Troy to get that finish. That being said, we've seen a lot of these big favorites go down. We saw Zalal go down as a favorite to Ilya Taporia. All three of his UFC wins have come by decision. Even before the UFC, a fair amount of his wins have come by decision. Choi is really tough. Again, great with the striking, but seems to get taken down by a slight breeze. I mean, really has lacked to be able to control the pace of the fight and grind him out, make him tired.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So looking at the line, you see Yusuf Zalal at minus 250 and Choi at plus 205, and I just don't feel comfortable with the money line or putting 250 and Choi at plus 205, and I just don't feel comfortable with the money line or putting Zalal in a parlay. I don't think he is
Thank
the
you.
better guy in the stand-up because when I saw him against Apuria, he was actually the slower guy in the boxing exchanges, and guy in the boxing exchanges, and he relies a little bit on his explosion and his movement ability, and I don't know that that's going to hold up against someone like this. So to me, you're relying on someone to go to their ground game, and I saw on tape at least, Zalal did area. So I feel comfortable saying that he could get the decision win, and at plus 155, that's certainly much more appealing than playing him straight up on the money line. But submission at plus 360, I saw him threaten a guillotine, a triangle choke, and a Kimura against Apuria. So attempts like that, and also get out of a bad guillotine attempt and a couple of other bad submission attempts that Tapuria nearly sank in. I feel comfortable saying that Zalal is going to look to get this to the ground because for someone that was out wrestled, he still looked to initiate clinch and grappling exchanges in his last fight. A clinch and grappling exchanges in his last fight, his first UFC loss.
Yeah, absolutely. There were a couple of things that you actually said that I did want to touch on very, very, very quickly.
Sure.
You had said that you had mentioned something about the money line, and I had written about that in my notes. How suspect this money line for Zalal coming in at like minus 230 to minus 240, even more. That's way too high. I think he should be closer to like a minus 170. And Choi has way too much power, and uh, it could be a crazy night. That being said, I do feel very good about if we can get out of that first round, that Zalal will win the fight.
Sure. So it sounds like we're both going to be picking Zalal, maybe by different methods. I might look at the submission, but I'll probably just end up playing it safe with the decision, given all of his fights have went to decision. 4.
Submission is a great pick because Suwon Choi has been submitted before. So while we're hanging out on the ground, you might as well go.
It's not that
It's
you won't
certainly
look for it.
possible. No, definitely.
So
Moving
sure.
right along.
We got our next fight here: Molly McCann versus Lara Procopio. Molly McCann coming in, giving up a little bit of reach here. 5 inches is something that she also had as a disadvantage in the Tyler Santos fight. And that's definitely a big red flag for me as someone, Molly McCann being a BJJ purple belt and Lara Procopio being a black belt. This is someone that is not going to be easily beaten in exchanges on the ground and in Procopio's one UFC fight, her debut against Carl Hosa, who's also going to be showing up on this card. She really gave a great display of her striking ability. Good combinations, finishing with the right cross and really snapping the head back. Solid leg kicks, returning the ones that Hosa kept on dishing out. and she works her head movement in with some small feints, but she could definitely be a bit hittable and a little bit slow to react, and
Definitely. Definitely a little hittable.
it
Definitely a little slow to react. I did feel personally that even though it was a split decision, I thought she lost all 3 rounds of that fight um, against Carol Hosa. That being said, I do think that there were some good things to take away with Procopia and her performance. And I actually do think that meeting Molly McCann at this stage in her career is
Sure. McCann 3-2 in the UFC now. She's won 3 decisions, so she hasn't really shown the ability to dominate her opponent to a finish in the UFC. 4 knockouts in her career, but none in the UFC. She's lost by 1 submission and 1 decision. Just 1 submission and 1 decision. Jillian Robertson was able to sink in the choke, and Tyler Santos was not able to. So uh, could we?
some interesting things. Oh, I'm sorry,
No.
DB.
Oh, I was asking, what could we see here?
Well, so what I saw interesting in watching the tape from some of those fights was that Jillian Robertson, who's not necessarily known for her boxing and certainly wasn't in 2018, was keeping up on the feet with Molly McCann and eventually forced that fight to the ground and sunk in a rear naked choke in the second round. So Molly McCann, who's like people talk about her boxing, it's this, it's that, and it's good, it's better than my boxing, but I don't know that it's going to be good enough to really keep up with somebody who threw 150 strikes like efficiently. I'm sorry, landed 150 strikes, right?
Yeah, yeah, and
She landed 150 strikes like fairly efficiently in her last fight, in her first fight. So when you've seen over all these fights now, 4 UFC fights for Molly McCann, that her, well, 5 even, that her striking is just not quite where it should be. Quite where it should be. I think that that opens up a huge hole in Molly's game, especially when it's not like she's got some sort of like wrestling or jujitsu to rely on. Like her striking is what she's relying on. So Lara, the jujitsu black belt, is gonna try to take her down, and we've seen that Jillian Robertson was able to do it. So I like Lara Procopia to get it done.
yeah, you can see just from a 1 fight sample size, 11 strikes landed per minute for Procopio, whereas McCann in her career is at 5. Statistics from McCann that also showed up on the tape: 29% takedown accuracy and 33% takedown defense. She's not the highest level of grappler, and if a longer reach makes it a little bit easier to get to where you need to with the body lock, wrist control. And, Procopio should be able to handle this. And as an underdog, 48. So I dropped a full unit on that. So with that play, I think that kind of leaves it at that. It seems like you're also on the Procopio train. Seems like we'll both be picking her straight up and placing a little bet on her as well as the underdog. The next fight here.
Choo choo, choo choo.
Carol Hosa versus Jocelyn Edwards, who we recently saw in the octagon just a few weeks ago. Uh, Hosa coming in, she's actually going to be the shorter fighter, giving up 2.5 inches of reach and 3 inches of height. But you're going to see at the face-offs, she's going to have a lot of size, and she's not going to be easy to push around for Edwards. Someone that's used to some good battles at Bahana Valetudo. She has wins over Vanessa Mello and, as we just spoke about, Lara Procopio. So 2-0 the UFC. So 2-0 the UFC, both decisions. But her striking output, combinations where she always follows off with a leg kick. She's a machine with the output. And while she might not have the punch power, it's just, it's like she just is nonstop in the way she puts it out.
Her
So
combinations
I
are
just don't
beautiful.
envision Edwards coming off a short notice, quick turnaround, not a full camp, someone that she might not be able to bully around like she has other opponents, and someone that also gassed someone that also gassed out a little bit in the third round against Wu and was picking her spots at points where she might have been able to get the finish. So yeah, I'm leaning towards Carol Hossa here, and I was actually able to find decision at plus 118 and on points bet, but that's going to end up being my play. That's going to end up being my play. I feel most comfortable, saying that Edwards, her chin should hold up. She has one submission loss, one decision. Uh, do you see anything differently?
No, I hate to sound redundant, but I think Cal Rosa's combos are incredible.
See anything differently?
No, I hate to sound redundant, but I think Cal Rosa's combos are incredible. She always throws those leg kicks, constant pressure and volume. BJJ black belt, super well rounded, built like a tank. Uh, you know, Edwards, you know, Edwards just fought and won 3 weeks ago. That was a great underdog pick for us and great win for her. Uh, Tough to see how she's going to look now fighting again, cutting weight again. Don't really feel comfortable taking that side. Don't really feel comfortable. I certainly like roasted up by decision.
Next fight, Devonte Smith versus Justin James. Um, Devonte Smith, 8-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch leg reach advantage, 4 years younger. And Justin James coming off of a pretty brutal, huge knee from Gabriel Benitez. Uh, Justin James, he's got some strong hooks, good combos coming forward, closes the distance pretty well, and lands combos inside. When he wants to throw them, he has heavy leg kicks and solid wrestling foundation. He's a coach over at Extreme. Devonte Smith, ever since he went to Factory X, he's really been turning into quite the prospect, but he has a couple concerning knockout losses on his record, one to Kama Worthy. And, he looks very tentative in there, a little bit robotic. He was getting pelted by leg kicks. And he into a 1-2 and just gets countered with this huge hook from Worthy. And, it just made me very concerned coming in against a guy that's going to come in and start throwing some big hooks in Justin James. And, while I might not necessarily recommend playing this fight too heavily, did, looking at the Justin James money line and even the knockout prop, you could find it plus 460 for the knockout, plus 265 on the money line. And I think either of those are, pretty good because if you're looking at what James, you're probably not going to land the volume. And, I think he has that one shot power. And we've seen a guy that has an off button. Devonte Smith has been knocked out before. But overcoming that 8-inch reach, what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, listen, I can certainly see. Uh, yeah, listen, I can certainly see the pause for concern in Devonte Smith. What I saw in that fight against Kama Worthy and his former partner or training partner was again that fight was a short notice fight. So we always talk about how difficult it is for the guy coming in, but it can definitely be difficult for the guy that already had a fight, who's changing opponents, changing game plans, these things. The pressure of being a minus 1,000 favorite. He did not look very sharp in that fight at all. He looked very concerned uh, with just everything that just everything that Kama was doing, and not really focusing on what he should be doing. He looked very reactive instead of proactive. That being said, he's taken a fair amount of time off, and I think he's really. I would hope that he's really retooled his mindset and retooled his game as a young fighter. He has all the intangible things that you don't that are the physical intangibles. That he's strong and he's quick, he's athletic, he's explosive. Um, James is a good boxer. He's like an all around guy, all around fighter, but he seems to get too hit too much for my liking. He's soft to the body, getting hit to the body and hurt to the body seems to be a theme for him. And he has a suspect gas tank, and he loves to get into these wars. Like his fights have been exciting. Um, so while I would probably from this fight betting wise, I'll certainly be taking Devonte Smith here. And if we're betting, I would probably either be betting Smith by KO or Smith in round 1 or 2, which is a round grouping prop that some books offer. Both were listed at minus 150, 155. Um, not fantastic. I would prefer, plus money on essentially a parlay, but sometimes you take what you can get as a degenerate. That's where I think the value is.
Sure, and that's why you said, you might not play this, but sometimes we can't help ourselves. And it looks like this is the first fight of the night where we're going to diverge in opinion. So I'll be circling James, it looks like, going for that knockout on the prop, and you're looking the other way. So we'll see how this one goes head to head. Our next fight, Mike Rodriguez, slow Mike, coming in against Danilo Marquez, and this one could be a very interesting matchup. Mike Rodriguez finally meeting someone who matches his size. There's been some discrepancies as far as listings. I've seen Marquez listed as big as 8 with an 81-inch reach, which I don't believe that's true. I think it's more towards the 6'6", 77-inch reach that we saw listed in his first fight against Ibrahimov. One that was a very unimpressive debut, but he did pull out that underdog decision for us, didn't he? BJJ brown belt under Damian Maya, and Mike Rodriguez. He should be holding some sort of reach advantage once again in this fight, and that just opens up the elbows.
Yeah, definitely. I agree completely. And he also had that flying knee and punches knockout in Dana White Contender Series, which was also, which got him signed, which is really exciting.
The fight, and we saw in his last one of the weirdest ones I've seen recently with Ed Herman. Uh, Probably could have finished him on three separate occasions. In the first round, he hits him with this huge elbow coming out of the clinch, just staggers backwards, and uh, just staggers backwards. And, I don't know if he really went for the kill enough there. Then in the second round, he lands this huge knee to the body. Antonioni just pauses the fight, acts like it was a nut shot, and hey, I don't blame Herman for going along with it. Then he barely acts like it was a nut shot, and hey, I don't blame Herman for going along with it. Then he barely hangs on to survive the second round, and in the third, Rodriguez knocks him down again and stupidly hops on top. All of a sudden, he's in a Kimura trap, gets swept on the bottom. Then he steps over full crucifix, and he's pulling on that Kimura, and at that point, Rodriguez just has to tap. But he could have won that fight any any which point, by knockout in any of three of those rounds. To me, I just don't see Marquez being able to survive the storm. As good of a grappler he is, I don't think he's big enough to really get ground. And do you really see different here?
Listen, I could possibly, but probably not. Um, you know, uh, Marquez, has a bit of a salty record with, I guess that's putting it mildly. I mean, he literally has beaten a guy that was, oh, I mean, that's insane. He had his first win in the UFC over Ibrahimov, who's currently not in the UFC anymore. Uh, I believe he took that fight on like short notice. So as terrible as that fight was, he did win it and on short notice.
Sure.
And as we would figure, Mike Rodriguez's kryptonite would be a good grappler, somebody that can hold him down, make him tired, and eventually, choke him out. Or, somebody that could starch him because he likes to get into knockout wars too. Um, um, Either way, slowing him down or knocking him out, I guess, would work. Um, Marquez, unfortunately, doesn't really have that KO possibility, which is why the number is so high on him. Plus, what is he? Plus 205. Yeah, no, I think it's the problem with Rodriguez. It's KO or bust. If it's if he doesn't get the KO, then you're gonna be sweating.
Yeah, and Get right down to business. Round one plus 175 for me. Knockout Mike Rodriguez. If it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen then. And at that point, don't worry because he very well might get swept for some sort of submission.
Definitely. He just this fight just kind of screams Khalil Roundtree at me for some reason. So I'll probably end up staying away.
Let's see where he is at on the scales. This is one that I'm not going to place the bet. Not so great before. So hold off. Wait to see him get it in. For now, I'm circling Rodriguez, but hey, things are subject to change on this particular fight.
Yeah, I would definitely circle Rodriguez here, but I am absolutely waiting for weigh-ins to be betting anything. Well said. Moving right along.
So now kicking off versus Beneil Dariush in a rematch that's been years in the making. First fight back in 2014, uh, went to decision, and the only other loss that Fajeda's found in the UFC has been against Poirier, round one knockout back in 2015. On a huge run since then. So it's really going to come down to Dariush's wrestling and what developments we've seen in his Muay Thai versus Fajeda's developments in his wrestling and his stand-up game. I know that you had a pretty good bet on this fight. What are you seeing here?
Yeah, listen, Dariush, UFC vet, 5-fight win streak, 4-fight finish streak. His last one being the 8th ever spinning back fist KO against Scott Holtzman. Uh, Preceding that was the fight of the night winner versus Ricard Close. He had a round one submission of Frank Camacho. I mean, he has looked really, really good. Um, he had snapped his 0-2-1 skid where he had lost to prime Edson Barbosa and that brutal knockout KO from Alexander Hernandez. But other than that, again a while ago, he's looked really, really good. Um, Whereas Bahia again is also on a 6-fight win streak, has looked uh, really, really well. Super well-rounded fighter. A little awkward with his striking, but and obviously prefers to be on the ground as a black belt, but really, really well-rounded. Hasn't fought since January of last year when he beat Anthony Pettis, which was really, really impressive performance, probably the best performance of his entire career. Um, so they both look to get back into the octagon here, and it's a really exciting fight. And I don't necessarily understand the line. Um, from everything that I've seen on tape, Dariush is the better striker. He's the better wrestler, and Dariush can hold his own on the ground. Like he's not a schlub. Um, so, and then you add on the fact that it's a rematch, and Dariush like washed him in October 2014. I'm not honestly. I watched that fight. They both don't get me wrong. They much better, but they kind of still look the same in terms of their general styles. Like there's nothing like jumping off the page so different um, that they super switch. So I don't necessarily see why this fight's going to happen any differently. I think Dariush could even get the finish this time around, which leads me to just wanting to bet him money line as opposed to trying to pick a method. But Dariush at plus money is, I think, a steal.
Yeah, you've been hammering that one all week, letting me know about it ahead of time in the preparation, and I definitely see it. Pitt has been able to win recently off of his pressure and making opponents make mistakes. And Dariush isn't someone that succumbs to pressure and actually seems to be doing a lot better recently with it. Just got awarded the comeback of the year for his performance last year, and that was one hell of a knockout. Close. Um, Highlight reels forever for that. So I'll be circling Dariush along with you. The advantage is in the wrestling. You might be able to get a submission finish, but against a third degree black belt, I don't know how likely that is. But in a stand up, that's where I really do think it might be possible. But you're right. If you can get plus money, which I was able to just a couple hours ago, uh, there's a couple units on Dariush. I think Is that not your best bet?
I was about to say that is absolutely my best bet of the card. Dariush money line.
Hit it up.
Absolutely my best bet of the card. Dariush money line.
Hit it up.
Yeah, drop the bag on it. No, I do. I really do feel quite good about Dariush. He should get it done.
Yeah, and to get away from dropping the bag and feeling great about a bet, let's move on to the next fight. uh,
Possibly a fight of the night contender. Really one of the most exciting fights of this entire card.
yes, yes, and dare I say, the people's main event.
Certainly, I would say no. The people's certainly, I would say no. The people's main event is reserved for like the actual not good fights.
Oh, I don't know. Come on. Yeah, no, you're probably right.
Let's be real. Michael Johnson, Clay Guida is the people's main
Yeah,
event.
no, you're right. That's especially the legend status. And oh man, that's gonna be gritty. But yeah, so hey, there we go. Circling up, Beneil Dariush. Think he'll get it done again. The next fight here, we got Cody Stamann versus late replacement for Askar. And prospect came up through LFA here in his last fight. 2 fights ago, Askar lost by brutal knockout in the first 30 seconds. And, uh, I don't think that that's going to be repeated here against Stamann, who has some underrated stand up abilities. But let's be real, this one's probably going to be taking place on the mat. Going to be looking for a lot of grappling from Stamann. And, I'm not sure that Askar is going to be able to, you know, get out of all those bad positions while he might scramble well initially.
Yeah, I don't really.
Bad positions while he might scramble well initially.
Yeah, I don't really. I stayed away from this fight. Once I heard that Andre Ewell had fallen out, I had really liked Cody Stamann by decision over Andre Ewell. So I'm staying away here. I will be circling Cody Stamann. I expect Cody Stamann to win. I don't think Askar is going to pose too much of a threat. Uh, I really wish I could still even bet Cody Stamann decision, which is at -150, but I'm not convinced that it will last that long. Cody Stamann could actually get a finish, and he doesn't get very many
No.
finishes. So
Yeah, I'll be this is actually one of the 2 fights that I'll be taking a seat on the sideline for as far as betting goes, because the -500 price tag on Stamann as the favorite, sure he's gonna win, but if you lose a bet on a -500, you know how you're gonna feel about it. So let's just avoid that. And while the finish might happen, the decision might happen, let's just enjoy the fight, see how this guy does in his debut. So, next one, speaking of debuts, and speaking of fights that I might be staying away from, we have Alexandre Pantoja versus Manel Cape. And I might be staying away from. We have Alexandre Pantoja versus Manel Cape. And coming over from Rise and not being able to wear shoes anymore, Manel Cape is going to be making his debut here. I know you pointed that out on tape to me, and I just found that absolutely. I know you pointed that out on tape to me, and I just found that absolutely hilarious.
yeah, I mean he's used to wearing wrestling shoes for most of his rising career. He's that's so weird. I mean, in the UFC, you obviously can't wear shoes, so it'll be really. I don't know how often you train with shoes, so it may not.
Is a wily veteran. His only 2 losses in the UFC, or I'm sorry, 3 losses at this point. He had Askarov, Figueiredo, and Dustin Ortiz. Those are all top names in the division at this point. And I think it's going to be a real good test to see where Cape is at coming into the UFC. I just don't feel comfortable placing a bet with so many variables, switching from the ring to the octagon, no shoes, making the jump up to UFC level competition, and seeing Cape lose to Horiguchi and all that. Maybe you have a pick here because I don't. Seeing Cape lose to Horiguchi and all that. Maybe you have a pick here because I don't.
I do have a pick. It could be a bad pick, But I do have a pick, and I like Cape money line here plus 110. I really feel like this fight is 50-50. So I feel that getting that leads to value on Cape. I feel like this fight is 50-50. So at plus 110, I feel like I'm getting significant value on Cape. Um, he's like you said, he's coming in for his UFC debut. I mean, he looked fantastic in his last outing versus Work. He's quick. He is extremely powerful. He has this long leading jab. His striking just looks so technical, just so sharp, and he's very furious with his takedown defense. You know, he's quick to grab those under, especially with the the Figueiredo fight, that he has a willingness to scrap. He will stand on the feet and exchange. And you've seen that the grappling exchanges, while he certainly Pantoja has the advantage grappling, you've seen the grappling exchanges start to wear him down, and that's what happened against Askarov. He continued to grapple Askarov, and Askarov would control the wrestling exchanges and out exert him, and eventually beat him to a decision. So I think that is coming in hot. He's a call rising whatever you want, but he's a world champion. Um, so this guy is seeing the lights, the glitz, the glamour. He is ready for the stage here. They gave him Pantoja for a reason. Um, I'm
Pick of Pantoja for the straight up. The one thing that really worries me is if the fight does go to the mat. I know that Pantoja is on another level as far as grappling, and I'm just not sure offensively what Cape offers. So I'd also like to see them at the face-off. Not getting really good readings out there on the height and reach for Cape. So I want to see what they look like face
definitely.
to face. See if I can get anything from there.
Cape also has a really low stance, so that's going to help him in terms of stuffing those takedowns, and that also honestly going for takedowns being already low. That also honestly going for takedowns being already low to the ground. Not that I really don't expect him to be taking him down, but he might. Don't be surprised if you see Cape try to take him down, slam him down, and go for ground and pound because he might want to do something like that to surprise Pantoja. I'm not sure I recommend it, but he really might, because I do feel that he's somebody that's confident in his abilities as a former world champion.
Sure. We'll move along. Uh, next fight, just a few left here. Michael Johnson versus Clay Guida, and
I love
oh
this. I
boy,
love this fight. I'm excited to watch this fight. Stay away from this fight. It's so damn unpredictable. Clay the Carpenter Guida, man. Listen, you're gonna want to watch it. His head's gonna be bopping. His hair, man. Listen, you're gonna want to watch it. His head's gonna be bopping. His hair is gonna be everywhere. Michael, no longer the Menace Johnson. Um, had the skills and the talent at one point to be one of the best lightweights in the world, and never really seemed to put it together. To me, mentally wise, fight IQ wise, inside the octagon, has been his own worst enemy. Now sits 19-16. Um, you can't. I would say this simply: the best version of Michael Johnson, the Michael Johnson at his best, should smoke Clay Guida at this point in his career. The is that Michael Johnson very rarely shows up. So I don't know if Clay Guida, with his vigor and his constant takedowns, and he's going to come to brawl. He could just wear Michael Johnson down and and win the fight. And I don't know what's left for Michael Johnson to do in the sport.
the things of interest for me in this fight, as far as betting goes, because I just can't help it, and it's on the main card, and I want to be able to enjoy it while I'm watching. So I'm thinking if you're live betting here, if you have that option, if you can after the first round, if he looks like he's still got his senses about him, hasn't been beaten up too much, you could get him, plus 500 or climbing, somewhere around there. Like, yeah, I would feel better. And also, Michael Johnson, I don't feel good playing him unless he's plus money. I don't feel good playing Guida against Johnson unless he's like, so Michael Johnson, I don't feel good playing him unless he's plus money. I don't feel good playing Guida against Johnson unless he's like I said, like plus 500 or something. So, if you could catch a live, great. But also, as we've seen with Michael Johnson in the late submission loss, maybe a Clay Guida sub here plus 1100. That might not be the in the late submission loss. Maybe a Clay Guida sub here plus 1100. That might not be the most far fetched thing
No,
in the world
definitely
here.
not. I happen to actually really like that. Plus 1100. I mean, what's wrong with a little
Yeah, come
sprinkle? Come
on.
on. Hey, relax, guys.
Come on. Everyone, nice fine dinner at Applebee's. I mean,
We,
come on.
we can split the 2 for 20.
Uh,
I mean, what's wrong with
come
that?
on. Yeah. Plus 1100, you throw $2, you get the 2 for 20 now. I
Don't
mean,
let
come on.
anybody tell you that
That's
that's
a
not a
great deal.
quality date meal. Valentine's Day coming up, so book your table at Applebee's.
Breaks up with
Uh,
you. uh, so yeah, I mean, I actually might be circling Clay Guida here because I just can't bring myself to actually pick Michael Johnson at this point. But I don't necessarily recommend anyone to follow me off a
yeah,
bridge with
listen, I very rarely would say this out loud, but
that. To follow me off a
yeah,
bridge with
listen,
that.
I very rarely would say this out loud, but Michael Johnson's really probably one of my least favorite fighters. But I do think that he should be able to get it done by decision. God, I am so unsure. I'm gonna be waiting for weigh-ins. I don't even know who I'm waiting for weigh-ins. I don't even know who I'm circling. I hate to do that. I listen.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I'm circling. I'm circling Michael Johnson at the moment, barring anything crazy and weigh-ins. I'll tell you that.
low energy or looking really bad out there, you might have to change the
Yeah,
pick.
I'm sure he's had weight issues.
Co-main event of the evening: Corey Sandhagen at 13-2 versus Frankie Edgar 24-8-1. And talk about someone that's been in the game a long time. UFC career 18-8-1 for Frankie Edgar. Are you kidding me? I mean, I remember buying the first UFC video game and Frank there fighting at 155, right?
Yeah, I mean, he has the most
I,
fight time in UFC history. So, I mean, you could watch Frankie Edgar for like 8 hours fight on your television.
hey, maybe you have a day off you want to just spend. I don't know, maybe you're a psycho like
8 hours watching
that.
all of Frankie Edgar's.
But paper here, you know, if you didn't show me a betting line and you told me to pick who's going to win this fight, I would probably tell you Corey Sandhagen. But there's a few things that have popped up here that have really caught my
What
eye.
would you make
First
the
off,
line?
150 minus 150 plus 125. I think that would be the fairest thing. I don't think either guy wins this more than 2 out of 3 times.
Yeah, 100%.
And
I think this fight is way closer than the odds
but
makers have let everybody believe. Everybody believe.
yeah, where are we sitting right now? Okay, I looked earlier. We're at minus 450. Has that even moved in the time since we started doing this? Because it feels like every time I look, you know, the line keeps on sliding. Yeah, so still here minus. The line keeps on sliding. Yeah, so still here minus 450. Edgar coming back at plus 350, but uh, Sandhagen's going to be having a reach advantage a few inches, and you know that kickboxing background might not be. You know that kickboxing background might not be so good against a high level wrestler like
Especially
Frankie
when
Edgar.
Sanhagen doesn't necessarily use his I mean, he doesn't necessarily use his reach in the best way. He has a lot of in the best way. He has a lot of unbelievable shifty techniques and switch stances and has the ability to throw all these different elbows and kicks and knees, but he really prefers to be in boxing range as opposed to kickboxing range, at least from what I've seen. Up close with Frankie Edgar, he's just going to circle the cage and, you know, throw his punches, throw his jabs, keep making you work, and eventually, shoot for that single, shoot for that double, and try to get you to the mat.
Yeah, and we saw Frankie eat some punishment from Munoz, but and during the fight, yeah, I mean, until he walked to his corner and you could see that limp, I mean, you wouldn't have known any better. Edgar, we don't have to question his toughness,
Not
but
at all.
a couple questionable things that popped up on tape for me for Sandhagen. He's fighting John Lineker. Sandhagen, he's fighting John Lineker and asks his corner going into the third round, "Do I need this one?"
Ooh.
That's a bad sign to me. We talk about, you're going against someone that has one of the best gas tanks. You're going against someone that has one of the best gas tanks of all time.
I've found that Corey Sandhagen is, and I believe I've heard his coach even kind of allude to it, say it. Corey Sandhagen is not somebody that's looking for a finish. If the finish comes, he'll take it. But he's not. He'll take it. But he's not somebody looking for a finish, and that's not a good style to have when it's very possible that the guy across from you has the philosophy of kill you or until the ref pulls you off. It's not a great philosophy to have. I don't really like that. And I do think that Corey Sandhagen is extremely impressive, and I do think that he probably does win this fight more than 50% of the time, but not much more than 50%. So at plus over 300, Munoz, right? Wasn't he like plus 300 versus Munoz? Oh,
It might have
200,
been
250.
yeah, in the plus. It was in the plus 200 range because Munoz's line didn't get quite run out like Sandhagen's is right now.
Plus
The closing line is going
225,
to be much
I
further from
believe.
where, or much
Yeah,
more comparable
agreed.
in this case. But this is feeling like, I heard the boys over on the Line Movement podcast talking about this being like the Yair Rodriguez fight. He might be getting overlooked a little bit too much here. And, we said Corey Sandhagen might not be searching for the finish. Corey Sandhagen might not be searching for the finish. He's also not searching for takedown defense. 30% in his career. Uh, that's not a great sign. And he also has this tendency to just give up the back. He does it, against Lineker at the end of the second round. He does it against Sterling. The back. He does it, against Lineker at the end of the second round. He does it against Sterling. Uh, it's not a great sign against the guy that's, a four-time NCAA Division One All-American wrestler and a BJJ black belt under
Definitely,
Ricardo
and
Almeida.
I certainly think that Frankie has a chip on his shoulder. I mean, he knows that he's a heavy underdog. He hears time and time again that he's 39. When is he retiring? What is he doing after? I mean, it's like beating a dead horse to him. And if you don't think that he's, I don't want to say like boiling because it would sound like he would act for this fight. I do. I think that he has something to prove. I think he wants to prove it. Again at a like Frankie said, at plus 350, Corey Sandhagen should run through him, and I don't see that at all.
And at that token, that's going to be my best bet of the card because at that value, this type of name, this type of background, and this type of ability, his move down to 135 has gone swimmingly. It seems like he's finally in the right weight class for his career. And, I'm very excited to see if he can pull it off this time as well.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited to see if he can pull it off this time as well.
Absolutely. Best bet, Frankie Edgar. And that brings us to our main event of UFC Vegas 18, UFC on ESPN Plus 42, UFC Fight Night 184, Alistair. Oh,
Wow, here we are. And
here we are.
this is going to be a banger. Someone that finally matches up in size to Alistair Overeem here, towering over him by 3 inches. Drago here, that's something that Overeem has been able to rely on in the past, having a nice advantage. but let's talk about backgrounds. I mean, 12-7 in his UFC career, Alistair Overeem, and 47-18 overall. Just an immense background in the sport. And Volkov, let's not overlook 32-8 in his career. No spring chicken, 32 years old, still up and coming. 6-2 in the UFC. His two losses, you know, Curtis Blades,
Can't
no shame in that, best wrestler in the
honestly.
division.
I think
Curtis Blades,
can't.
no shame in that, best wrestler in the
Honestly,
division.
I think Curtis Blades is the champion of any heavyweight division that doesn't have Ngannou, Cormier, and Stipe in it. And I know that's like a really loaded statement,
Sure.
but truly, I really think he is the heavyweight champion of like heavyweight champion of like any organization that doesn't have those three guys in it.
And that Derek Lewis fight that
Oh my
Volkov
God, brutal.
loses, I mean, he was winning up until those last
My
15,
balls was
20
hot.
seconds. And
Was
20
hot.
seconds. And yeah, all of a sudden someone's balls got hot and that was it. Something had to happen. So, I don't think Volkov's chin is an issue here. Two career knockouts. Um, the most recent one being Derek Lewis, and I think he kind of got caught by surprise given how low output Lewis was in that fight up until that moment. Kind of cruising to the decision win, and you let your guard down. Hey, most accidents in your car happen when you're closest to home, so I guess that's what happened to Volkov. He thought he was
I'll
home, and
take it.
boom, there you go. He's
Sponsorship.
knocked down on his ass. But so now you see with Overeem 9 knockouts in his career, but he's also got those 3 decisions in the UFC. And I should specify those knockouts. The 9, he has 23 in his career, 9 coming in the UFC. And his 7 losses, all seven by knockout in the UFC.
Yeah. Listen, this meeting
So,
between two of the absolute most efficient strikers in UFC history, Alistair Overeem, I believe, the most efficient striker in UFC history, and Volkov in that top 7 category for most efficient strikers in UFC history. I have one one term that will break down this fight and what I believe will be the determining factor of this fight. That word is pace. I think pace will determine this fight. In my opinion, Volkov will set and control the pace of this fight as it continues to play out. I think the first round will be a little bit of a feeling out process, but I think that Volkov's overall output will be too much for Overeem, and his pace will inevitably make Overeem succumb. And I even think possibly by knockout.
and for a heavyweight fight, if you're picking a side here, and it seems like we're both, leaning towards Volkov, plus 125 on the knockout. That's a nice price that you're looking at, Guru. For me, uh, I think that this fight probably does end inside the distance. That price obviously is not something you want to pay, but something I do envision happening is in the size. Overeem, normally relies on that athleticism and size advantage, the cardio, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of test out the waters before he really starts trying to grapple Volkov because Volkov did some elbows from bottom, and he really got Blades in some danger at points. So I don't think Overeem is going to be rushing in to grapple immediately. And I think, where I'm looking to play is this fight to start round 3 at minus 118.
I love that. I look down in terms on the Overeem side, at least in my opinion. Uh, Betting that fight to start round 3, I mean, it hedges you.
Yeah. And, while I might, be parlaying Volkov in some degenerate parlays, and, I might be kicking myself for not underdog in this spot, I just can't help but feel that every time I see Overeem fight, he turtles up, and he's able to withstand the damage and tire out his opponent. And I just don't see Volkov falling into that trap of falling into that trap of striking right into that gigantic guard of Overeem's. You know, Volkov has this great front kick, great leg kicks. He really picks his punches well, and it's gonna take a different type of game plan from Overeem to win this. So it's gonna take a different type of game plan from Overeem to win this. So uh, you know, my pick will be Volkov. My bet is to start round three, and sounds like your bet, the knockout.
Yeah,
Is that true?
Volkov by KO plus 125. I also think I really like the Volkov.
True.
Volkov by KO plus 125. I also think I really like the Volkov parlayed with the over 2.5. Some books offer that. I like that as well. Like I said, I think pace is the determining factor of this fight. Um, yeah, and I don't, as we know, who's teammates with Alistair Overeem. So we've already seen Team Elevation's best executed game plan, in terms of wrestling and trying to take down Volkov. So yeah, while they have studied Volkov a lot and they certainly know what to expect from Volkov, I'm not sure Overeem can execute that game plan. Or ready for that. I'm not. I really don't. I'm not sure that Overeem will be able to get it done, especially with the lack of the amount of strikes he throws. I do expect Volkov to control the pace.
Great. So looks like we found our way to the conclusion. I'm so glad that if you decided to listen, that you can make a little money this weekend off of our
Hopefully, we all
picks.
did.
If you want, yeah, that's right. If you want the rundown, our our friend Guru over here is running our social handles, so he'll be posting our picks before the fights, what we settle in on before, after the weigh-ins and their fights, what we settle in on before, after the weigh-ins and everything. And we just want to make sure that we give you guys a nice little pretty layout of, what we're going with, so that when you're sitting there Saturday afternoon, trying to think and, see what you want to put together, maybe you'll have something, see what you want to put together, maybe you'll have something.
Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos. YouTube channel, Chronic Combat Conversations. Uh, Please make sure you go like us on Twitter and Instagram, Chronic Combat Conversations, Chronic Combat, I believe, on Twitter, and Tapology. He's got all the gas over there. Make sure you go follow him. And if you haven't already followed me, I am the MMA Guru, the hashtag MMA Guru on Instagram, Twitter, Verdict, and Tapology. Guys, thank you so